What's up, everybody, and welcome to the Stand Up Guys Podcast, episode 143. I'm your host, incomparable Zach Jones, joined as always by, let's see who we got this week. It's the ninth wonder, Chocolate Thunder. He's looking for a mate to punch that prostate, the teeth gritting, keeping that shiznit in, hankering and begging for a spankering and pegging, the phenomenal A.J. Singh.
Prostate punching, huh? I wonder what that would be like.
Well, let's say like your biggest like celebrity crush was like, okay, I'm willing to be with you, but one day a month we're bringing out the strap on. We're going to town.
I'd have to. I'd try to maneuver around that one day. I'd try to push it to the end of the month and try to get her to know me, and then she by then like maybe we should drop it. I don't know.
She'll just go easy on you. Well, you weren't on last week's show when we reviewed Guardians, so I'm curious. Spoiler free, of course. What were your feelings of Guardians of the Galaxy?
I really liked it. I think it lived up to the first two movies, and it lived up to the Guardians name, which is, I think, a good franchise in the whole Marvel Studios, like what they've released so far.
Yeah, actually, I think you might be right. Like, as far as like all the individual like franchises within the MCU go, I think it's one of the most consistent quality-wise. I think it might be the tops.
I mean, it's so weird because like I'd never heard of these characters before the movie.
I know.
Like, I at the time I was like, why is Marvel making this? You know, like,
right?
Do they really need to like? They had been doing okay up until then, and I was like, you know, this sounds like it's gonna be trash.
Yeah, like this might be a step too far.
Yeah,
and then they just come out of the gates as like one of the best MCU movies. Yeah.
So I definitely I enjoyed it, and It sucks that there's no more Guardians movies, man.
I mean, I don't want to spoil the movie for anyone who doesn't see it, but the way it ends, I suspect we'll at least still get like a lot of those characters.
Yeah.
Still.
Yeah, but I mean, you know, no more James Gunn with his hands on the project.
Right. It's going to have a different feel to it for sure.
Yeah. I heard that in Infinity War, they actually, some of that stuff James Gunn had no clue of what they were going to do in Infinity War. So like when Gamora died, and when Star-Lord like had that interaction with Thanos and everything, like that kind of threw him off. Like he wasn't expecting like there to be like some other storylines that were like birthed from that movie. So like it kind of took him off of like what he was trying to do with Gamora. He wasn't trying to like reset her and make her a new character. He was trying to like, you know, keep her in the series as is and like try to build some sort of fruitful relationship, I suppose, maybe between them.
Yeah, I saw a headline about that. I didn't read it, but yeah, it was something to that effect. Like you would think, I mean, they would coordinate those things a little more, but
right.
It's got to be tough to do just because you got so many projects, so many different writers, and like you don't necessarily want to step on one writer's idea if you have a way you can maybe write around it, you know. Right. So yeah, I imagine it's very tricky juggling something as big as the MCU.
Yeah, I mean, Gamora, like the way that movie was written, like she kind of had to go though, you know. There was no way around it. Like
the Avengers movie.
Yeah, and I mean it was well done. I thought, you know. Like,
that's the thing that I think I can forgive it because like that moment in Avengers like is really strong and it works. Yeah, it totally works.
Yeah, that was a very powerful moment. That's true. Yeah.
I mean, I guess you know going forward, they could potentially like, you know, make them a couple again. But, like, I don't know. It almost would seem like maybe they should. Maybe still. Like, we already know that, like, dying in the MCU isn't necessarily forever. But, like, at least they can have stakes of, like, oh, like, those two's love kind of had to die, you know?
Right, yeah. I mean, it did seem like they had forged different paths at the end of the movie. Like, she was like really chummy with the Ravagers. It seemed like she had built a new family with them.
That's true. It did seem that way. Well, you watched anything else besides it over the last couple weeks?
Not really.
No.
No.
Not even more YouTube reviews.
I mean, I always watch those. I actually watched a YouTube review of a Fresh Prince recently.
The old Fresh Prince or the new one?
The old one.
The old one?
The new one sucks. I heard. I don't know. It's like dramatic and soap
Yeah, I
opera
would.
like.
Yeah, I didn't. I mean, to be fair, I haven't watched it, but I don't know. Just the premise, I was like, okay, you're gonna take this really funny show and make something like dour out of it.
Right.
It didn't sound good.
But this guy Prim's Hood Cinema, he like points out all the flaws with these like '90s shows and stuff, and like how careless and blasé they were when writing the stuff. he's like, this guy has Carlton has a girl, or Will has a girlfriend named Cindy in this episode. Carlton had a girlfriend named Cindy 2 episodes ago, and like she was pregnant and this and that. And, like he was just pointing out all the like silly stuff that goes on in these episodes. It's just like you don't even think about it, but you're like, yeah, every week they come up with some crazy stuff.
I know, because like when you're watching it at the time, you don't really think about like what happened like 2 episodes ago. You know, you're not going to remember like a little detail like that.
Yeah, but I mean, like if you think about it, like what is going on in Bel Air? They're giving out free drugs. They're doing this. They're doing this. It's nuts.
I did used to love that show. Like I kind of I thought about revisiting it one day, but I didn't because But sometimes you don't even want to revisit like an old show because you're like, man, I want to in my head feel like it's good.
Yeah.
So like I'm always like paranoid at revisiting certain things.
I get that. I mean, I revisited X-Files, and it was better the first time. The second time was all right, and I don't know. Every time I watch it now, it's like it's kind of lost some of its
some of the luster.
Yeah.
I think Vince Gilligan, the guy that created Breaking Bad, I think he used to be a writer on X-Files.
Oh, okay. I can believe that. I can see that.
I don't know if the whole thing or just certain seasons or whatnot. Because that show, it went like a long time, didn't it?
Oh, yeah. It went forever.
Yeah.
Maybe eight really like long full seasons.
Yeah. That's the other thing is like television back then. It was like,
Every
each
week.
season was like, 24 episodes or something, That's a lot of television.
Yeah, exactly.
Man, like some like really, really old shows, like black and white shows, like they literally had like, I don't know if they went, a full 52 weeks, but like close to it, like try and pump out a new episode every week. So some of them have seasons that are just like insanely long,
I don't know how they did it, man. Like I saw that documentary or whatever about how South Park pushes out an epussode once a week. And that, I mean, just with modern technology, it takes a lot to do that. I know it's a cartoon and all, but I mean, still, like just to push out any kind of show in 1 week is hard as hell to do.
I know. I imagine, like, I don't know if like all shows did this, but I assume some of it. I remember I was watching a thing about, the old Adam West Batman show.
Yeah.
And they would sometimes do, I think, what they call block shooting, where they're like, okay, we're shooting like in the Batcave right now. So we'll basically every script we have written that has a scene in the Batcave, we're gonna shoot those like today, rather than doing like one episode and then like starting over.
Yeah.
Like they're just good. And I'm like, from an acting standpoint, that would be so hard to like keep track of and like, okay. This is a whole different episode now. Like, what are we doing in this scene? It's like a whole different scenario.
Yeah.
I mean, I can't even imagine like trying to keep that together.
That's a good point. Like with movies too, like they shoot them out of order.
Yeah.
So like the actor really has to know like his characters, not only their arc, but like in what scene is that part of the arc going to be in? Like,
right.
Are they recording? So like the last day they might record, the first day they might record the ending of the movie, and the last day they might record the beginning of the movie. And like you have to keep track as an actor of like where your character should be within this whole arc. That's so hard to do, I think.
I know. And like, imagine if you had to like start off with like the most emotional scene of the movie, and you just got to go to like 0 to 1,000 like that. Yeah, man, it's amazing. Like acting, like. It's got to be tough, man.
Yeah, I used to
be
think
good
when I was younger, I thought acting was just, just do whatever you do.
Like
in
just
front of a
remembering
camera.
lines. Yeah.
But no, there's a lot to it. Yeah.
Have you watched Scream 6 yet?
Not yet. I've seen like a little bit of the reviews for it, but I haven't watched the movie yet. It's got that Jenna Ortega in it.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, same girl from Scream 5. Those sisters or whatever.
Right.
It seems like they're kind of building the franchise around them now.
Okay.
But yeah, I decided to watch that because it was on Paramount Plus, and I don't think I liked it as much as 5.
Okay.
But like, it's fine. It's another one of those things to where you're like, this universe is crazy. Also, like, I won't spoil, but there's one character that I'm like, I'm not really fond of this character. And at one point, they get stabbed like a million times, and I'm like, okay, yes. And then at the end of the movie, they're like, no, I'm fine. I'm like, what? I'm like, what? That was ridiculous. So yeah, definitely people surviving things they could, but yeah, I mean, it's a little ridiculous, but it was fun enough.
Mm-hmm.
And then I don't know, I think I was just in the mood for watching like something that was like the opposite of horror, just like something like pleasant. And so, have you ever watched? There's a famous foreign film that I had only seen once before. It's a French film called Amelie.
Oh yeah, I've seen it a couple times.
That's a good movie, right?
Yeah.
I like it. It's just like I don't know. There's just something like pleasant about it. You know, it's not like cynical. It's like a sweet movie.
Yeah, it is exactly that pleasant.
Yeah, it's just like a feel-good movie that you're like, okay, maybe the world's not completely terrible.
Exactly.
You know, if you ever want that feeling, I recommend Amelie.
It's a charming movie.
Very charming. And in that vein, this was just kind of by coincidence, but like I didn't have like anything I was really watching, so I was just like, going around Netflix, and I came across this show that I'd seen the thumbnail for a couple times, and then I saw someone on Twitter like recommend it, and it's this Korean show called Extraordinary Attorney Woo. Have you heard of this?
No.
So this is about like this woman that has autism, but she's also a lawyer.
All right.
And much like Amelie, man, it's just like a very like non-cynical, like just like very charming show.
Oh, okay.
I ended up really liking it, and I don't know. There's something about like Korean like cinema and really just like Asian cinema in general and TV shows where they got like a very quirky sense of humor.
Yeah.
And that's definitely in this show. And like I legitimately laughed several times. But like whoever the main actress is, like she's great.
Okay.
Like in like portraying a person with autism. Like you buy it, but she's also like just very charming.
Okay.
And I ended up, I really liked it. I don't know if they're going to do a second season or not, but if they do, I'm all for it.
What is this on?
It's on Netflix.
Okay. Wow, that's crazy. I've never seen it on there.
Yeah, it's South Korean show, but I very much enjoyed it. Man, I do wonder like if this writer's strike is going to mess up some TV shows because from what I understand, like they're expecting this not to be a short strike. They're thinking it's going to go on a while. And I just remember when that last one went off, like there were some shows that really, basically ended because of it.
Yeah.
And so I'm like, what's going to hit the chopping block this time?
I mean, for me, it's not that bad because like I don't watch that much TV anymore, like like cable TV or anything. Most of the content I watch is on like YouTube and stuff. But I mean, a lot of the content I watch is reviews of TV shows, so I think that'll take a hit. And
they'll just have to dig deep and do like the Fresh Prince and all like the old stuff.
I mean, there's a show called. There's a show with like seniors, like old women and like their sons, and they're all dating each other. Like on this show, like this woman goes on there with her son, and her son dates like another older lady, and she dates one of the other older lady's sons. It's a weird show, but I've been watching reviews of that.
Wait, so it's like Cougar and Sons or
something? Something like that.
Ah, that's so weird.
It's so bad.
So do they go on like double dates?
Well, they do try to make it as awkward as possible. I don't know about double dates, but they do like the mother and son will share a room. And so when they want to invite somebody to their room, they have to invite that person to their shared room. So
God, who invented this? Is this an American show?
Yeah, it's awful.
What does this like air on?
It's got to be like a VH1 type.
I was gonna say it sounds like one of those like TLC or Discovery
TLC,
type, real trashy like reality shows. But even like the premise is so weird.
Yeah, it's bad. Everybody, nobody has anything good to say about the show.
I mean, well, it's just so weird because like if you had a mom that was like trying to get like a young guy, like you would not want to witness that.
No.
And I would think vice versa. If you're like into older chicks, like you Like, oh yeah, come along, mom. Like, watch me date this old broad.
Yeah.
It just the whole premise seems weird.
Yeah, they seem pretty messed up mentally. Like the mothers who are okay with this. The sons, I feel like they just kind of go along with it. They don't know any better. They're too stupid. They just listen to their moms. But the moms really should know better. They seem like they're off the rocker a little bit.
Do you remember what is the name of this show? It seemed. Do you remember?
I don't. I'm not 100% sure. I'll have to look it up.
Jeez, Lou, yeah. Reality TV, man, it's gone off the rails. Oh, did you hear this is a couple weeks ago, but Jerry Springer died.
Oh, right. Yeah.
Man, I remember his show was so ridiculous, but much like wrestling, like when I was a kid, like I didn't know it was like a work. Like I didn't know they were like hiring people to like act out these scenarios. So I was like so engaged with it when I was a kid, you know.
I mean, for me, like I think I was like a teenager when I knew that it was like fake and stuff, but it was still in its like heyday at the time.
Right.
So like, you know, people were still like hyping it up, and remember it was like center stage of American like culture at one point.
It was like a huge show.
Yeah. That and Maury, but even Springer was bigger than Maury. I remember there were like episodes of MTV Spring Break that they had like people on, like they would have Jerry Springer like do his whole episode like at Spring Break and
Right.
stuff. That's nuts, man. The guy was just, I mean, he was fun. Before he got into the Jerry Springer show, he was a politician then too, right? Like he was like a
Yeah, I think he was like a mayor of Cincinnati or something.
Right, yeah. And then he left, got into the Springer show, did all that crazy stuff that you would think would never lead to a career in politics after that. But he went back to it, right?
I want to say he did like try to run again. I don't know if he won, but I want to say he did run for some sort of political office again. I think maybe in like the very early days of Jerry Springer, it was maybe like more of a legitimate show.
Yeah.
But then somewhere along the way, he was like, "Oh, if we have people act these out, it can just get crazy."
Yeah, they just went for like the craziest thing that they could do. Like most of it was like, I'm cheating on you, and then the person you're cheating with turns out to be cheating on that person or a transvestite or something like that. And then Maury, he was famous for like the pregnancy ones, right? Like, you know, he's not the father.
Oh, yeah, that was his gimmick. Man, that reminds me of when I was in college. Like me and my college roommate, for whatever reason, we'd watch Maury a lot.
Yeah. Maury was big when I was young too. I think Springer like kicked the door open and then Maury walked in like afterwards.
The thing about Maury though is like once like he found out the paternity test thing was a hit, like he really like didn't do anything else. It was just paternity tests all the time. He used to at least mix it in where he'd have like the like trans ones where like, can you guess if this is a man or a woman type of things.
Yeah. That was a lot of like the only trans exposure that anybody ever got was like Maury.
That's true.
Like at least he let us know that they existed, I guess.
Man, there's a wrestling podcast I listen to, and one of the guys said like at one point like Jerry Springer show actually wanted to do like an angle that would involve like some of the guys that were like wrestling on the show, some of the wrestlers, and eventually it never happened. But apparently they were talking like the Jerry Springer show, I guess they used a lot of like independent wrestlers and stuff. Like he said, like he recognized like a bunch of people back in the day that were on that from like the indie wrestling scene, which is funny.
That's hilarious because like they are trying to, hone their acting chops, and like that's a great place to like get your resume.
Well, and like some of them would like get slightly physical with each other, and then they'd like break it up with security. Remember?
Yeah, Steve Wilco.
Yeah. Which is crazy. He eventually got his own show.
It's still going.
Oh, is it?
I think so.
But his was like stone cold, like depressing. It was like guys that were like, I don't know, like molesting their kids and stuff.
Oh.
Like it was like really, or like guys that were like beating their wives and stuff. It was like I saw a couple. I don't know if it's still that way, but I saw a couple of them, and it was like really depressing stuff. I'm like, whoa, he went a different way with his. He went like the serious route.
He was not feeling Jerry Springer on his approach, I guess.
I remember he had this gimmick he would always do, where like if a guy was a real like piece of crap, he'd like kick his chair away and he'd be like, you don't have the right to
sit. That's so stupid. That's funny though.
I didn't know he was like still doing his thing. I'm like, because like I feel like the 90s and like the early aughts, like those shows were very prevalent, and then maybe it's just because I stopped watching cable that I thought they disappeared, but maybe they are still around.
Well, I didn't know he was still going too, but I watched like a podcast recently and they mentioned that his show is still on the air, and I was like, wow, this guy's still going? Like,
yeah, that's crazy. I didn't know that.
Watching that, yeah.
I remember Ricky Lake back in the day too.
Dude, you're talking about old TV shows. I just started watching Pluto TV, and they have old I Love Lucy episodes on there. We watched like I Love Lucy marathon last night.
Oh, really?
All night, yeah. Like we were just loving it, man. We grew up to that show.
That is one show. Like I'm sure, like they showed reruns and stuff at Nick at Night or whatever.
For sure.
But I just never watched it. Maybe it's because also I think my mom like didn't like it or whatever.
Oh.
So I never really knew I Love Lucy.
That's wild to me because it was on the air so much.
Yeah, I think it did play a lot when I was a kid. We never watched it.
Man, I mean, it was unavoidable. But it's such a fun show. Like, even my nephew, like Liam, he likes to watch it too. Like, he thinks it's funny. And, like, it's just such a silly slapstick, you know. Anybody can watch it. You don't need to know English to get Lucy's humor. She's just so expressive with her face and stuff. So, yeah. Been enjoying that.
You know what's fun is like when you're a kid, like you have no frame of reference for when like a show you're watching was created.
Right.
Because like when I was a kid, you know, I'm watching things like Looney Tunes. I had no idea they were made in like, you know, like the 50s and 60s or whatever. I'm watching Gilligan's Island not knowing that it's, you know, was in the 70s or whatever.
Yeah.
You know?
I watched
or maybe
a lot
60s.
I watched a lot of Gilligan's Island by myself. Yeah.
Brady Bunch, same thing.
Right.
And you're like... I remember as a kid being like, well, this is a new episode. It's like, this hasn't been new in like 20 years.
Yeah. But I feel bad for those people who've been watching it like new and over again in that meantime. Like, I watched it like for the first time in the 80s, but then if it aired in the 50s, that means somebody's been watching it for 30 years.
That's true.
I mean, that means TV was so scant with like programming that you had to watch the same shows forever, over and over again. That's terrible. I mean, now we're in the golden age, and even now I feel like I'm out of stuff to watch sometimes.
You know what I do kind of miss, though, is like the, 60s TV, like the theme song that explains the whole premise of the show.
They're buddies. They're walking. That's kind of like the Marlon, that's like the Wayne's brother intro. But yeah, like I know what you're talking about where they do the whole entire... Yeah, I do kind of miss that. That does kind of like lay out, okay, what am I in for?
Right. So Charles, he's in charge of these people. I'm
of
gathering.
Our days and our nights? Okay.
Oh, man. Should we get into story time?
Let's do it.
All right, everyone. So anyone who hasn't watched or listened, we're going to go around the table, and we'll find some hopefully entertaining stories from around the globe. And AJ, as tradition dictates, we usually start with you. So what do you got for us?
Father who adopted child that turned out to be 22-year-old feared she would stab him after finding knives under her bed.
I actually had this story too. It's wild, isn't it?
I haven't read this one.
Oh, go ahead.
The family who adopted a young woman they thought was a child said they feared she wanted to stab them. When Christine and Michael Barnett adopted Natalia Grace back in 2010, they believed she was a young girl who had a rare bone condition. However, it eventually turned out that the 6-year-old Ukrainian orphan was in fact a 22-year-old woman. And while the couple thought they were growing their family, it turned into a nightmare, they say left them fearing for their lives. In an upcoming documentary about their ordeal titled Curious Case of Natalia Grace, Michael opens up about the trauma they endured. We were all abused, he says in the trailer. I hate this. She tried to poison and kill my family. And one night, I open my eyes and Natalia is standing at the foot of the bed with a knife in her hand. Michael had previously spoken about finding knives in the house, which he believed Natalia planned on using against him and his wife. Michael says he woke to see Natalia standing over him with a knife. She would speaking on this morning, he said she would put thumbtacks face up on our stairs, so when we walk up and down the stairs, we'd be stepping on thumbtacks. What is this, Looney Tunes? Certain things would start to become missing in the home. We'd find knives under the bed. There was a moment when I woke up in the middle of the night, and Natalia was standing over my bed with a knife in her hand, a very blank look on her face, and she's just standing there with a knife. However, while these harrowing accounts have made headlines over the world, speaking back in 2010, Natalia denied that any of it was true. When asked if she ever went into their bedroom with a knife, she told Dr. Phil, no, never. Natalia denies that she did anything wrong or wanted to harm them. Pressed on whether she wanted to stab them or had planned to do harm, Natalia again denied it, saying, no, if I ever went in their room, it was to wake them up because I was either scared or a nightmare or something like that. But I never went in their room. I didn't. Natalia claimed that she felt loved by the family and thought she had found the right mom and dad. I actually thought I had found the right family after bouncing around from a lot of families. I thought I had found the right family for me, she said. Just kind of ends there. I don't know why, but do you have that story too?
Yeah, I want to say the only other thing like I saw in the article I had was like the family eventually like just hightailed it to Canada and like left her in the house, and then they were like prosecuted for like abandonment, but then eventually like they got the judge or whatever to find out or to legally like change the girl's age to what it was 22. And that she was an adult or whatever, so they like ended up dropping those charges. But this sounds like the premise of a very weird horror film. Like the question I have is like, did the orphanage that took this woman in, were they also in the dark that she was pretending to be that she was an adult pretending to be a child?
That's a good question. I mean,
it is crazy though when you see the photo of her, because it does look like
a kid.
Yeah, that one photo of the parents with her when she was young or whatever.
Yeah.
And she looks like a little kid, but like she's, an adult, and I'm just like, and she also like, it sounds like maybe she was in more than one family as well.
Yeah, I think she was in like another family before this.
So you have to wonder, like, did that family ever suspect?
I mean, she's clearly not playing the part if both families gave her back or like, felt suspicious about it.
But also just the weird combination that she did this, but also like, she seemingly like is a psycho that like poisoned the wife or whatever.
Yeah.
And like at least thought about like killing them, it looks like.
Yeah.
Very bizarre story.
Look, you should adopt if you can, if you got love to give, but man, be careful. There's some grown-ass people out there.
Gotta be careful, those Ukrainian or
little grown-up Ukrainian kids.
Can you imagine that? You adopt a girl you think is like 6 years old or whatever, and then you find out she's like 20.
Yeah.
It's like, what?
You can work now.
Yeah, I saw that story and it's so bizarre.
Yeah. Maybe
it'd be worth actually watching that documentary, because that is something.
Yeah, that's nuts, man. Like, she went along with it. That's wild to me. But what's she gonna do? I don't know. How's she gonna live life looking like a 6-year-old?
That's the other thing. Like, you wonder like, what was her ploy in this? Did she just want like a free meal? Free housing?
I guess.
Like, what was her like overall goal?
This reminds me of another girl who has like the same or a similar condition where she looks young. She looks like she's like 8 or something, and she's like 24, and she's looking for a boyfriend, and she wants to get married and have that life, but like it's hard because she looks like a kid. So.
Oh yeah, now that you mention that, I think I saw maybe an article about like a guy that was talking about like dating her or something.
Yeah.
That would be really weird.
Yeah. I mean, what can you do? She needs a partner, but at the same time, it's like the only partner you think she's going to end up finding is somebody who's into pedophilia.
And even if he wasn't, like, can you imagine, like, ever, like, anytime you go out, people are just going to assume, oh, that's a guy with his daughter.
Yeah, yeah, that's true. You can't really be affectionate in public. You can't do anything like that. It's a terrible situation that she's stuck in.
Yeah, if people saw them being affectionate, they'd be like, oh, 911,
Yeah, straight
call the
up.
cops.
Yeah, get away from that man.
Yeah, exactly. Like, there'd be no explaining it.
Yeah,
Yeah, that's crazy.
yeah.
It's crazy that conditions like that even exist.
I remember when I was a kid, I watched this show where they had like these kids. They were all like maybe 13, 14, the oldest. And they had this condition where they aged really fast, like really rapidly. So they might be like 13, 14, but they look like 96 or something.
Oh, yeah, I remember seeing one of those kids on a show once.
Yeah.
It was like, Benjamin Button, the whole thing was like aged in reverse or
Yeah.
whatever. But it was almost like that because it was a little kid that looked like they were 90. It's so weird.
Exactly. Yeah, it's so wild.
What a terrible, terrible disease to be
Yeah.
born with. Jeez, can you imagine?
Hmm.
Well, staying in the same lane, I have another kind of like crime story, but this one actually does involve murder.
Man.
Mom wrote kids' book after her husband died. Now she's charged with his murder. A family of 5 from Utah faced an unspeakable tragedy last year. Eric Richens, a husband and father of three, died suddenly. The cause of death was a mystery at the time, yet it devastated the life of Corey Richens and her 3 children. To cope with the pain, they turned to literature. With the help of her kids, Richens wrote a children's book titled Are You With Me? To help other kids deal with loss. What a heartwarming story. Or it was until Richens got charged with murdering her husband. She has now been arrested and is facing charges of poisoning her husband with a deadly dose of fentanyl. See, this is why we can't have nice things. The Richens family's supposed tragedy happened in March of 2022. That night, Mrs. Richens made her husband a Moscow Mule to celebrate a success at his workplace. After handing the mixed vodka drink to him, she went to one of her son's rooms. The child reportedly suffers from night terrors, and Mrs. Richens fell asleep next to him. When she woke up, she discovered to her horror that her husband was unconscious. When she went to him, he was cold to the touch. At the time, it seemed the entire family had been shaken by their loss. To try and help her children understand what had happened, Mrs. Richens said she started looking for a suitable children's book. Unfortunately, she couldn't find any, so she decided to write her own, despite having no literary background. I'm not a previous author. I am not a child psychologist. I'm not a counselor, right? Richens told KPCW in April of 2023. I am a mom of 3 kids, and I can only write about what I know and what we're going through. To make the book as authentic as possible, Mrs. Richens asked her children to help, to the extent they could. Her kids told what they were feeling to fuel Richens' writing process. It's been a long, long year and a difficult year. Writing this book has brought a little peace to me, and my boys. The book, Are You With Me?, was published in March of this year, a year after Eric's death. Another book called Mom, How Far Away Is Heaven? Was slated for publication in May. Unfortunately, new details have shown that the story Miss Richens had spun isn't exactly correct. In fact, if the allegations are true, it's downright fraudulent. Remember how I said Eric's cause of death was initially a mystery? It didn't stay that way. A medical examiner later discovered that he had died from a fentanyl overdose. But he wasn't known for drug use. Where did the stuff come from? Try his wife. According to the charges, Mrs. Richens had contacted an unnamed person between December 2021 and February 2022 to acquire a strong pain medication, supposedly for an investor with a back injury. She received hydrocodone, but she wasn't happy with the purchase. She allegedly contacted the person again, saying she wanted some of the Michael Jackson stuff, and specifically asked for fentanyl. That's what she got. And only 3 days later, after a Valentine's Day dinner, Eric got sick. Eric believed that he had been poisoned, told a friend that he thought his wife was trying to poison him, The court documents state, according to the BBC. See, that detail there, you would think if he actually believed that, like, he would not be taking a drink from that she made him, just a couple months later or whatever. A month later, maybe. Curiously, nothing more seemed to happen. 2 weeks later, Mrs. Richens bought more fentanyl, the court files state. On March 4th, Eric died. According to the court filing, the Moscow meal he had on the night of his death included more than vodka, ginger beer, and lime. The secret ingredient was fentanyl, and it was served to Eric by his wife, according to the documents. Mrs. Richens was arrested on May 8th and charged with Eric's murder. In addition, she's facing charges of possessing GHB, an illegal narcolepsy drug that's often used as a date rape drug. A detention hearing for Corey Richards is scheduled for May 19th, and to think that her book, published just 2 months ago, is dedicated to my amazing husband and a wonderful father. I mean, the thing of it is, I kind of wonder, like, if she had never wrote the book and got that round of publicity, like, would they have still, like, discovered the fentanyl poisoning?
Yeah, that's a good question.
I mean, I don't know, like, why. It seemed like the medical examiner would have done it initially, instead of, like, this far after. So, like, I don't know if there was something in her interview or something that made them take a second look, or I don't know what exactly caused the second look. But, I mean, just, like, the sheer audacity to, like...
Yeah, write a book.
And also, like, make her kids go through the trauma of, like, helping her write it and stuff. I mean, she seems like a real psycho.
Yeah, she is. She killed the father of their kids. Man.
Yeah.
Man, this makes the world scary, dude. This guy was married to this woman. Like, he'd known her for years. And even then, he learned to not trust her because she changed on him. Like, he was like, I think she's trying to poison me.
Right.
Like, I don't know, man. People are just crazy, man. This world is full of these kinds of people.
But also, if I was, like, the guy that he told that to, like, I think my wife tried to poison me, and then he dies, like, a couple weeks later, I'd be like, hey, police, this guy told me, like, she was trying to poison him a couple weeks ago. Maybe look into that.
I would have thought that's what, like, maybe he brought that up later or something. Like, that must have been what broke it open.
Like, maybe that guy sat on that information for some reason?
Maybe he didn't, maybe he thought, like, they must have figured out why he did it or what happened exactly. Maybe he didn't know that was it, but then, like, later realizing, like, there was no cause of death, just natural causes. He did tell me this. Maybe I don't know.
Yeah, it doesn't go into detail of, like, what brought him back around to it, but, man, crazy story.
Yeah, it's just that, I mean, there's so many people who get away with it. This woman almost got away with it.
That's true. I do wonder about that with, like, poisoning specifically, like, how many people, because people have gotten away with it.
Oh, for
sure, yeah.
Like, I've heard of cases, like, where somebody's done that, like, 3 or 4 times to different people. Like, they'll be like, they had an ex-husband that they murdered. They had an boyfriend. A long time ago, somebody died that they knew. Like, there's, like, a trail.
Right.
And they still get away with all this stuff until finally that last victim is the one that, like, gives them away. It's nuts, man.
I'm pretty sure they've had cases of, like, like, psycho nurses too that, like, poison patients,
Yeah.
And eventually they're like, oh man, we noticed finally so many people have died under this woman's care or whatever, and looked into it. It's like, phew.
And that's surprising to me that a nurse would do that, because you go down that path, you think to help people, like,
right.
Granted, they make good money, but everybody knows nurses, what they do, like, is primarily they help people. Like, their whole job is to, like, bathe, wash, clean, help. And to get into it for nefarious purposes, like, you really got to be motivated to hate people, to, like, want to kill people.
Yeah, and most nurses I've ever interacted with are, like, very nice and seemingly very, like,
they're, like, nurturing, kind of, yeah.
But, man, yeah, there's some psychos out there.
Yeah.
I'll throw it back to you.
All right, let's see what we got here. Archaeologists left coughing up blood and hallucinating after opening ancient Egyptian tomb. An archaeologist was once left coughing up blood and hallucinating after entering an unopened ancient Egyptian tomb. Back in the 1920s, legends has it that members of Howard Carter's research team died shortly after discovering and opening Tutankhamun's tomb. While some believe their deaths were a result of hazardous materials being released, others think that the tomb is cursed. Well, Egyptologist Romani believes that the curse of the pharaohs is real, and the Egyptian-born documentarian who lives in Los Angeles has lived to tell the story. While shooting for the Discovery Channel's Mummies Unwrapped, Romani was trying to identify a mummy that he believed could be a figure from the Bible, more specifically Akhenaten, an ancient Egyptian pharaoh. Documentarian Rami, no one goes there. I wanted to go there because I was trying to know more about Akhenaten, Rami told the Jordan Harbinger show. I went into the tomb, and that tomb literally has not been opened for 600 years or so. They know all the guards that have been there and never opened it. Romani says he and the guards heard all the snakes rattling and coming out after knocking on the stone. We go inside and start filming, and I go under that tomb and I find things. And I'm breathing really heavy and everything, and there's bats inside, and the smell is so horrible, and I left that tomb and I did not feel well. There's that ammonia bat urine smell. There's been snakes in there, along with these very strange smells, all going in your body, and your body's telling you to stop breathing. This is not good. I'm a host on the Discovery Channel. I'm yelling at the camera and being very excited, and I'm breathing in all this crap in. Podcast host Harbinger added, literally crap, probably snake and bat crap. But Romani insisted maybe the curse of the mummy mixed in. The following day, he was in horrible shape in bed. I had fevers that went up to 107, he said. Romani thought he was going to die, adding, we had doctors coming in and I was coughing blood. I was hallucinating, and my wife was really, really scared for me, and I don't know how I survived. None of the doctors really know what I had. They put me on a bunch of antibiotics and explained to them all where I was, and they said, well, bats, snakes, dust is not a very good combination for whatever it is. It could be anything. We have not seen this combination of symptoms, but hopefully these antibiotics work, and they worked. I'm alive and I'm here today. I mean,
well, back in the day, a lot of people that went into tombs died, and that's kind of where whole mummy's curse thing came from. But then what they eventually found was most of them probably did die from breathing in bad particulates, which you can imagine. You get a rotten body, all sorts of animal waste, all in this one area, like you're saying, dust, all this stuff. No wonder they're getting sick and dying.
Exactly. Yeah. And plus these people back then probably died from something themselves, in ancient Egyptian times, they might have been dying from diseases and stuff, and maybe they're preserved over time. I don't know.
Oh, yeah, that's a good point.
Yeah, because they're mummified. I don't know how diseases would survive or how they wouldn't, but it's sealed up for all this time. Maybe somebody opens it up and then boom, that's it. You catch something.
I could totally see that happening.
Yeah. They always showed corpses on TV when I was a kid, a skeleton's head.
Oh,
or whatever.
right.
And people would pick it up and stuff. I'd be like, I would not touch that. I would not touch a dead body for anything.
Also, it's one thing back then, but in the modern day, if you were going into a tomb, at the very least, wouldn't you be wearing a very good mask?
Yeah.
I'd be N95 or better.
Yeah. Well, this guy was trying to put on a show, so he had to do it without the mask. He's doing it for Discovery Channel.
Oh, doing it like Indiana Jones style.
Yeah. I don't know. You walk into a porta potty, you cover your mouth a little bit. You should probably do this too. But yeah, I think leave that shit alone. Don't disturb it anyway.
Well, that's a good lead into my article. A shitty situation. A woman claims neighbors are dumping buckets of poop in others' yards. Some people are just crappy neighbors, but for one Arkansas woman, that phrase has become disgustingly literal. Erica Craig lives just outside the city of North Little Rock in Pulaski County. She claims she has been dealing with a gross, smelly problem for years. According to Craig, her neighbors are far from sanitary. She says they have been defecating in buckets and dumping the feces onto her and other neighbors' property. And they've been at it for 3 years. They have been taking their feces in buckets and dumping it at the back of their property and then across the street on another person's property, Craig told KATV. They have been dumping it on the property too, she added. You'd imagine that local sanitation authorities would quickly address such a clear public health hazard. But Craig says that despite her contacting every department she can think of, no one has done anything about the crap issue. According to Craig, the poop dump has been going on for the past 3 years. It has made her life absolutely miserable, not to mention stinky. Oh God, when the wind blows, it's awful, she exclaimed. You cannot even sit outside. You cannot even sit in that back room back there with the door open because the smell just consumes the house. It's not just Craig dealing with this problem. The crap flows into neighboring properties too, and not always because it's actually being dumped there. Craig claims that her neighbors have a porta potty on their property. However, it has no collection system whatsoever. It's hollow and allows the poop to simply wash down into ditches and other people's properties. Craig's parents have lived in the home nearby for the past 32 years. Craig says they've suffered as long as she has since crap has been washing onto their yard for 3 years. Not all the neighbors are as patient about getting the issue resolved as Craig as her parents are. Many of them have moved away. Everybody around them has sold their houses, which is leaving the ones that are still left here to just kind of sit and suffer. Naturally, constantly living around human waste is not healthy. Craig claims she and her family have gotten seriously sick, potentially because of all the poop. She says she had to go to the hospital because of organ failure. However, the doctors were unable to determine the cause of the issue. They did not know what caused it, and that is after the neighbors had started doing the dumping poop, said Craig. Additionally, her father has seen doctors multiple times and was briefly taken seriously ill. Once again, they couldn't figure out what happened to him. Nobody is thinking it was because of human waste, so that is not something they are looking at, laments Craig. It's not like Craig hasn't tried resolving the problem. She has, but no one seems interested in helping her. She has talked to the neighbors and even offered to help them get their sewage system in order, claims Craig. However, according to her, they're not taking the situation seriously and refuse to change their ways. Since talking to the perpetrators failed, Craig has turned to the officials. She hasn't had much luck there. I have contacted so many different departments and none of them have done anything about it, Craig said. It seems Craig is running into issues with jurisdiction. The area she lives in appears to be so remote that no one is exactly sure whose responsibility it is. Although she lives in North Little Rock, in theory, Craig's property is some 300 feet outside the city limits, so the city authorities will not lift a finger to help her. What about Pulaski County then? No such luck. The county says it doesn't have authority over sewage management. Instead, the county advised Craig to contact the Arkansas Department of Health. They, in turn, have done nothing but send unhelpful reminders about sewage regulations. All sewage must be deposited in sanitary sewers, sewage treatment facilities, septic tank systems, or other systems or devices adequate to meet the needs of the people being served, the Arkansas DOH told KATV. That's a fantastic rule, so why is no one interested in enforcing it, we wonder. I mean, this does seem crazy because it is like straight up like illegal for them to be doing that. And you would think she would actually just be able to call the cops and be like, you see what they're doing? I mean, it does seem insane that she's gone through all these people and they're like, no, we're not going to do anything about it.
I don't know. That's so strange to me because in one area, I'm sure in like a different area, if you did this, they would immediately come out and stop you.
Oh, 100%.
Yeah, in most places. But in this particular situation, they can't do anything or they won't do anything about it. I don't know. It's so weird.
And also, what kind of rednecks like want to be doing this?
Yeah, that's so bad. Like, you don't want to be the person who's shitting in a bucket and throwing it around. Like,
no.
That is... Ugh. How are they living? Like, what are they... what is going on in their house? You know?
Maybe they're actively like trying to get everyone to move so they can buy up the land around for cheap. I don't know. Because they said like a bunch of other people like straight up moved away, which, I mean,
Maybe
if
they
nobody
had,
was
like,
going
a
to do
deal.
anything about it, I don't blame those people, but still.
Maybe they know they have like a in with the city, so like they're just running people out, like you're saying.
Or maybe they're that like one redneck family that's so scary, like no law enforcement will deal with them. Like, oh no, we don't go there. Not to that house.
And they throw shit, man. they fling
Buckets
food.
of it. But yeah, I
I'd
mean,
rather be hit by a bullet than by a shit.
oh man, I think it was in L.A. maybe, like in Hollywood somewhere. Like a homeless guy just ran up and poured like a bucket of diarrhea on a woman.
Yeah,
I'm
I
like,
heard
oh,
about
it's
that.
so bad,
Yeah. Oh,
so bad. I can't even like imagine like that
Yeah.
happening. Like,
oh, I'm gonna
ugh.
blow chunks.
Oh
Jesus.
man, I would puke all over the place.
Yeah.
On that note, AJ, what do you got for us?
All right, let's see. All right, I just read the. Oh, let's read this one. People are disturbed after learning the alarming reason why chainsaws were invented. I haven't read this one, so this should be interesting. Ever learned a piece of information that you immediately wish you could remove from your brain? If not, you're about to. Most of the items we use today have become popular because they make our lives that little bit easier, maybe by saving time or by cutting down on physical exertion. When it comes to the chainsaw, it's not hard to come up with the guess as to why it was created. It probably has something to do with trees. Maybe it was made to replace the classic saw, and make it much quicker to cut through the same chunky trees. Think again. The truth behind its creation is actually much more disturbing. It turns out chainsaws stem back to 1785, when Scottish doctors John Aitken and James Jeffrey came up with a device to improve the symphysiotomy method. Symphysiotomy. What's the symphysiotomy method, you ask? Well, it involves separating the pelvic joint from a woman giving birth to allow the baby to pass through more easily. Told you it was disturbing. Doctors initially used rigid saws and knives for the procedure, but Aitken and Jeffrey created a tool with a fine serrated link chain to help cut through the joint. The creation later became known as the Aitken's flexible chainsaw. Obviously, the device has been developed a lot since then, but that's where it all started, and learning that has left a lot of people horrified. In fact, it's so horrified that it sparked a trend of people filming themselves before and after learning the information, with short clips showing them going from clueless and happy to in the know and horrified. Other internet users used words to express their horror, with one relying heavily on the caps lock button as they wrote, "Childbirth? It wasn't made for cutting things, but made for C-sections? Oh, and how did I not know?" Another disturbed viewer commented, "Okay, yeah, usually I'm sick, not fazed by these, but that one was a mistake and I shall never use a chainsaw again without remembering this." I mean, that's crazy. Chainsaw. Well, I kind of thought they were used for like medical stuff though, because I remember like during wartime, they had to like cut off people's legs for like gangrene and stuff
Right.
like that. But this is actually a step further than I thought. Like,
Yeah, me too. I mean, are there babies that get just like so big that a woman like just straight up can't give natural birth?
I don't know, but is this really the method to cut her in half?
I mean, God, I can't imagine like it getting so bad that a woman's like, yeah, I can't push anymore. Just cut it out, like cut through my bone.
Yeah.
Ugh.
I mean, at that point, sorry, baby, but you're not coming out.
Yeah, when you first started, like it had a disturbing origin. I was gonna be like, okay, yeah, it's used to like amputate limbs, or it's used to like kill animals faster or
Yeah.
something, you know.
Yeah.
But yeah, that's pretty gruesome,
Yeah,
really.
it's pretty.
Ugh. That's a tough way to give birth. Okay, this is a more lighthearted article. So you know how there's like weird sayings for like, you know, groups of certain animals and stuff, like a murder of crows
Yeah.
and stuff. So this is 16 strange and funny collective nouns from medieval English. Number 1, A city of badgers. Badgers in medieval times must have been more civilized than the beasts of today. After all, they were able to form cities. It makes more sense, though, when you consider that the word city referred also to the badger's burrow. That would be its city, wouldn't it? Number 2, a thong of barons. Now, this thong couldn't possibly mean the same thing as it does today. Let's see here. Thong, in medieval times, spelled Thonge, a strip of material. It kind of does. Wonder which would be more intimidating to encounter, a thong of barons or a baron's thong. Okay. Number 3, a fighting of beggars. Dr. Hooks doesn't give any explanation on why the word fighting was used to describe a group of beggars. We just have to assume that medieval beggars were prone to brawling. I could definitely see that one. Oh, a rascal of boys. A rascal of boys seems like a fitting term, but while today we might call a rambunctious boy a rascal, in medieval English a rascal was a company of soldiers or a mob. Still pretty fitting if you ask us. Number 6, a cluster of cats. There was no special meaning here. A cluster of cats just sounds funny, really rolls off the tongue. In all honesty, we listed this here just to contrast it with what a group of wild cats is called. Speaking of which, number 6, a destruction of cats.
I can see that.
That just sounds like a bunch of murdered cats. Yep, that was a destruction.
Oh no, it's the destruction of cats.
Dr. Hooks notes that using the word destruction for a group of wild cats is a logical and reasonable extension of definition. The wild cats of ancient England were probably pretty nasty. Number 7, an intoxication of cobblers. Now, in all honesty, the original medieval source doesn't use the word intoxication for a group of cobbles. Instead, the word is drunkship, which means intoxication. The Old English cobblers must have liked stiff drink and then another to wash it down. It's weird that they would attribute, being drunkards to cobblers specifically.
Yeah, I mean, isn't that everybody? Like pirates, everything?
I mean, you would think a lot of people back then, but yeah.
Everybody was drunk back then.
But especially those cobblers. This one I like. An incredibility of cuckolds.
The incredible cuckold.
Incredible Culk. The word cuckold.
Yeah, love it.
The word cuckold derives from the old French word for cuckoo bird, but is meant as it is today, the husband of an unfaithful wife. Whoever wrote the book this term comes from must have found it pretty incredible that such men were band together. That seems like a very weird phrase. Number 9, a cowardness of curs. Today, a cur is a misbehaving dog, but in medieval England, it was a watchdog. But those watchdogs can't have been very good at their job if a group of them was called a cowardness. I like this one too. Number 10. A herd of harlots.
I've seen those.
Still on the lookout for them. Dr. Hook's source books use the word herd to describe groups of many things. One of those things is harlots. Now, herds of harlots weren't necessarily made up of prostitutes in Old England. The word also refers to male vagabonds and beggars. Number 11, a laughter of hostlers. The innkeepers of 15th century England must have been a jolly bunch. It's kind of refreshing to see these people use a word that isn't horribly disparaging for a change. Number 12, a worthlessness of jugglers. Well, so much for not being disparaging. Jugglers, that is bards or minstrels, clearly weren't held in very high esteem in medieval England. The word used in the old text isn't exactly worthlessness, though instead it's near thriving, as in never thriving, or near do well, if you will. Ne'er do well is a word people don't use enough. Number 13, a rage of maidens. Hell hath no fury like a maiden scorned, and if these maidens decide to team up, it'll take a real man to face that rage. Number 14, an abominable sight of monks. This phrase comes from the Book of St. Albans, printed in 1486 and credited to Juliana Berners, the prioress of the Priory of St. Mary of Sopwell. Sister Juliana clearly didn't think very much of her male monastic fellows. Number 15, a proud showing of tailors. Tailors, what an upstanding bunch. Wherever they go, it's always a proud showing, or not. There's also another word used for a group of tailors, a disguising. I guess that makes sense since they make clothes. And finally, number 6, a non-patience of wives.
Men clearly came up with these.
And they also seem like they would be a mouthful to say.
Yeah. A non-patience of wives.
Like a herd of harlots is funny. But like, oh, look at this non-patience of wives. Sister Juliana didn't like monks, and she apparently didn't have a high opinion of married women either. At least that's what her choice of words for calling a group of wives seemed to indicate. Oh, so this is woman-on-woman crime. Yeah. So this is even a guy that made this.
Non-on-woman crime.
Maybe Sister Juliana could have been a little less judgmental. A herd of harlots, definitely my favorite. And
incredibility of cuckolds. Yeah.
But where do you ever see like a group of men that you're like, oh, those are all cuckolds? We're going to call them an incredibility.
I don't know. I mean, you look at Congress, a lot of their wives are cheating with somebody, some lobbyist.
Well, we are over the hour mark, unless you got something else you'd like to go out
on? Nothing as fun as that, so leave it at that.
We'll leave it at a herd of harlots. All right. Well, everybody, I hope you had fun with today's show. Please, if you will, follow us on the YouTube channel, subscribe, leave us comments, thumbs up. You can also subscribe in audio form on your podcast service of choice. And why not come over and visit us on Twitter? AJ, where can people find you on Twitter?
At a name for this too, and that's number 2.
And you can, of course, find me at Zach Jones Live. That's ZachJonesLive. And that is going to do it for all of our shenanigans and poppycock this week. Please, please, please tune in again next week. Bye, guys.
Take care.